History 19. Chinese Red Cliffs Battle. Near the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, China was no longer a peaceful empire ruled by one strong center. The emperor still sat on the throne, but his power had become weak, like a candle burning in a storm. Across the land, ambitious warlords controlled armies, cities, and provinces. In the north, one man had risen above the others, Cao Cao. He was powerful, intelligent, and feared. He held the emperor under his influence, and with this political advantage, he looked south toward the great Yangtze River, where his next enemies waited. Cao Cao did not simply want another victory. He wanted to reunify, or bring back together, the broken pieces of China under his command. His armies had already marched across the north, defeating rivals and spreading fear wherever they went. But the south was a very different world. The Yangtze River stood like a giant silver wall, protecting the lands beyond it. On one side was Cao Cao, with his large northern army. On the other side were Quan, ruler of the lower Yangtze, and Liu Bei, a weaker but determined leader fighting to survive. If Cao Cao crossed the river, their future could vanish. As Cao Cao advanced south in 208 CE, Liu Bei was forced to run before him. His soldiers were tired, his position was dangerous, and his hopes were almost broken. At the same time, Quan faced a terrible choice. Some of his advisors told him to surrender, because Cao Cao seemed too strong to resist. Others warned that surrender would make him a servant of northern power. In this moment of fear, Quan and Liu Bei formed an alliance, a formal agreement between two different groups to work together toward a common goal. They were not close friends, but they understood one truth: if they stood alone, they would fall. The Southern Alliance soon realized that Cao Cao's great strength could also become his weakness. His army was huge, but many of his soldiers came from the north. They were not used to the hot southern climate, the river winds, or fighting on ships. Cao Cao was powerful on land, but the Yangtze was not a road for marching soldiers. It was a moving battlefield. Quan's commanders, especially Zhou Yu, understood the river better. They knew its currents, its weather, and its dangers. So they forced Cao Cao to fight where his numbers mattered less. In the winter of 208 to 209 CE, the two sides faced each other near Red Cliffs, also called Chibi. The exact place is still debated today, but the story of the battle became immortal. Cao Cao's fleet waited on the river, filled with soldiers who were sick, tired, and afraid. Disease had weakened many men, and confidence was disappearing. Traditional stories say that Cao Cao's ships were chained together to make them steady like solid ground. This helped his soldiers feel less seasick, but it also meant that if one ship caught fire, every ship would burn together. Then came the moment that made Red Cliffs legendary. The Southern forces used a clever tactic. They filled old boats with straw and oil and set them on fire. These fire ships were sent into Cao Cao's fleet, using the wind to deliver the destruction. Flames moved across the water like a hungry dragon. Fire reached the connected ships, smoke climbed into the sky, and panic spread through Cao Cao's army. Men shouted, ships burned, and the river became a scene of chaos. At Red Cliffs, The Southern Alliance turned fire, wind, and water into weapons of strategy. Cao Cao's great southern campaign collapsed. His army could no longer continue the attack, and he was forced to retreat, pulling his soldiers back to the north. This defeat was not just the loss of a battle. It ended his best chance to conquer the south quickly and reunify China under his rule. Sun Quan kept his lands in the southeast, and Liu Bei gained precious time to rebuild his strength. Together, they had survived against a much stronger enemy. Red Cliffs showed that victory does not always belong to the largest army, but to those who understand the battlefield. The Battle of Red Cliffs became one of the greatest turning points in Chinese history. It helped create the balance that later became the famous Three Kingdoms: Cao Cao's Wei in the north, Liu Bei's Shu in the west, and Sun Quan's Wu in the southeast. Over time, history mixed with legend, especially in the famous novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, where generals, heroes, and strategists became larger than life. Yet the heart of the story is simple and powerful. Cao Cao had numbers, ambition, and force. But the Southern Alliance had unity, patience, local knowledge, and the perfect moment to strike.